GarageBand Weekly is live right now. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to GarageBand Weekly here on Studio Live today. My name is Pete, and this is your weekly dose of all things GarageBand. Today, we're going to be talking about a brand new plugin from my favorite iOS app developer. We're going to be talking about the new Apple announcements because who doesn't want to beat a dead horse, right? Yeah. We'll talk about that again. And we've got a whole bunch of other stuff here. A tip of the week about combining your Apple loops and your actual keyboard instruments because it can be a bit tricky. What key are they in? How do we combine the two together? Well, I'm going to show you how to do that. But first and foremost, let's jump in to the news of the week. And the biggest thing happening in the world of GarageBand, or at least in the world of Apple, was the Apple announcement. Now, if you missed it, I've got a heap of videos here. Patrick and I broke it down and did our preview show. I then did a review the following day to say how right we were, and we weren't far off the mark, to be honest, because we did see a new iMac, we did see a new iPad Pro, we did see AirTags. Some of the other stuff we talked about, we didn't quite get right, but it was interesting because I reviewed my notes from last week's show before I did this week's show, and here's some of the things we said. We thought that there would be an iPad Pro. We were tipping an A14X chip. As we now know, the new iPad Pro has come out with the M1 chip. So if you haven't seen it, here it is. And we'll talk about it a bit more in a moment. But the new iPad Pro has the M1 chip in it. We did think there'd be an 11-inch and a 12.9. We thought there'd be speakers and camera upgrades. There were. We thought the USB-C port would become Thunderbolt. It did. And we thought that the 12.9-inch would have a mini LED display. It does. So I'm going to take that as a win. I'm going to give us a yes on that one. We did think there'd be a new Apple Pencil that could do some funky things like sampling colors from the real world. That turned out to be a giant crock. So no new Apple Pencil, but you can use the last one. New AirPods, we saw nothing in the way of AirPods. We thought there might be some new AirPods that were somewhere between the regular and the Pro. There aren't. We thought the iPad Mini 6 might get a refresh. It didn't. We thought the Apple 8th Gen would probably stay the same. It did. AirTags we thought were coming, finally, just because we don't want to have to talk about them anymore, and they are here now as well. So if you haven't checked those out and you don't know what they're all about, I wasn't going to talk about them today, but let's just jump in here and find them. Where are we? We don't have it here. See, it's not its own category yet. It's probably under accessories, but I bet you if we search here on Apple for AirTags, there you go. We're going to find the AirTags. So these use the Find My network to find your stuff. And they're only $29. And all of this stuff's available, by the way, buried the lead, but on the 30th of April, which is, what are we here today? We're Monday the 26th here in Australia. It'll be the 25th for many of you. So not far to go, yeah? You'll be able to get hold of all of this stuff pretty soon. At least order it. And everything kind of says, actually, these are available from the 4th of, you can buy them right now. There you go. So these will actually be shipped. So go ahead and buy some. In fact, I want some, so I better actually go and do that pretty soon. So $99 for 4, $29 each. What else did we say? We thought there might be some new covers and accessories. Didn't really get much of that. iMac. We thought a 24-inch iMac. There you go. We're on the money with that one. M1X chip is what we thought. We thought they'd upgrade the M1 chip. Nope. Seems that they've just said the M1 chip is great. We're going to put it in everything. We thought it would look more like the Pro Display XDR. So it didn't, and it doesn't. It instead has a big giant chin. If we take a look at the Pro Display XDR, we kind of thought it would look something a little bit like this. Which is more of that very thin bezel, and maybe that they'd use the stand to hide a lot of the stuff in it. Yeah, it didn't work out that way. They've actually got a big giant chin on the new iMac, and it looks more like this. It's not showing us. There it is. See, it's got its big chin. So we were a little bit off the mark with that one. Excuse me. Apple TV, the rumors were a new remote and that it would be enhanced. It is. It's got the A12 chip in there, and it does have a new remote. And we didn't really think that we were going to get anything in the way of Mac Pros or MacBook Airs or iPhones, and we didn't. So all in all, yeah, pretty good. Like, we were on the money, and when I say we, let's be honest, Patrick and I just watched all the tipsters and just repeated and regurgitated what they said. But yeah, it was pretty close to the mark. So the main things are the new iPad, the new iMac, we've got AirTags, we've got a new Apple TV, and that's kind of it. That's the main crux of it, but still a pretty good update. So let's talk. So what I wanted to talk about this week is a little bit about it. So you're watching it spin around right now, the new iMac. But if you've missed the last couple of videos, and there are videos linked down in the description if you want all the detail, because we're only going to go briefly into it here. But the new iMac, as you can see there, it comes in a whole bunch of different colors. You can choose your colors. You can go your blues, your greens, your pinks, your silvers, your yellows. Who would go silver, by the way? I don't know. With all these colors, who'd pick a silver? Probably me. Probably this guy. So yeah, you can set yourself up there. It looks nice from the front, from the back, from all the other places. But let's cut to the chase, shall we? Let's not bury the lead here, and let's go to the pricing, because this is what you're going to be interested in. So it's available, again, to order on the 30th and available in the second half of May. You've got the entry level. So this is, if you've been following along, this one is built on the same as the entry level MacBook Air. It's this 8-core CPU, 7-core GPU. You've got 256 gigabytes of storage, 8 gigabytes of unified RAM, and that 24-inch display. You've only got the 2 Thunderbolt ports on there and the regular Magic Keyboard, and you're going to get that for $12.99. Now, I think if you're outlaying $1,300, you probably want to go the next step up, not just because you get the extra colors, including purple, but you get the better chip there. You still get all the same details here, but you get 4 ports. You get 2 Thunderbolt and 2 regular USB 3. You get gigabit Ethernet, which I still recommend. I know Wi-Fi is good and better, but if you're doing anything where you need a reliable connection, gigabit internet is worth it. You get a Magic Keyboard with Touch ID and it's $14.99. And then you can go up to the 512 version for $16.99. Now, is this a good deal? And if you've got a Mac right now, should you consider updating? If you're a real iMac fan, absolutely. If you love the iMac, go for it. For me, I think that you could get yourself a Mac Mini and a nice 4K display for a lot less. And then you've got a bit more flexibility. You've got the ability to easily use 2 displays. If you want to upgrade to a second display, you've still got all the ports there. You've got the gigabit Ethernet built in. You can use whatever mouse and keyboard you want. So if how it looks and the stylishness and it being that ridiculously thin is important to you, the iMac would be a great machine. Look, let's be honest, it's going to crush GarageBand. If I'm talking to GarageBand users here, it is going to crush GarageBand or Logic or anything. We saw the video of the Mac Mini where they did 100 plugins in Logic on a Mac Mini and it worked fine. So the iMac is going to be a great option. But don't forget that if you're using a desktop, well, first of all, you could go the MacBook Air. The MacBook Air is basically the exact same chip, but you're going to get it from $9.99. So you're saving yourself money. You've got the exact same insides, but you're going to save yourself because you're not paying for that big 4.5K screen and all the thinness and all the newness and hotness. But here's my tip, is that the Mac Mini, and I'm a bit biased because I'm using one right now. It's what I'm using to stream this right now. The Mac Mini starts at just $6.99, and that is the upgraded one. So that's the 8-core, and because it's packed into such a small box, it is actually a really good deal. So again, if we go to the buy section here for the Mac Mini, you could go ahead and buy yourself something exactly like I'm using right here, right now, which is this one. And for $6.99, as you can see there, you get all the same stuff. So if the iMac did have an updated chip, yeah, I'd probably say it's worth considering going for it, but it's still the M1 chip. It's still going to be the exact same thing. So that's your Mac, and that's what we've got to so far. If you've got thoughts, if you've got opinions, please let me know. Welcome to the folks who are here live, by the way. I hope you are doing well. Mark's speculating that M1X will be at WWDC, so maybe they'll announce the next upgrade to their pipeline, and that's a good point, because we didn't hear with this any of the Mac Pro, the MacBook Pro 15-inch. We haven't heard about any of these. So, yeah, you might be right, Mark, that all these prosumer devices, we're going to have the M1 chip. And then at WWDC, they'll say, hey, professionals, we know you've been waiting for a Mac that has even more power. So we'd like to announce the even more powerful M1X. Something like that. That's my really rough Tim Cook impersonation right there. Tom Rochelle says, I'd consider silver. Don't like the look of the brightly coloured machine every day. Yeah, I don't know. There's something about those colours that I think would grate on you after a while. It's kind of like the phones. All my phones are just the slate grey or the silver because, I don't know, I reckon that if you like a red phone, I love red. But I think after about a month, I'd look at my red phone and go, gee, I wish you were just not so bright and in my face all the time. Maybe. Yeah, we'll see if we've got any other comments here. And then we go, 16 gigs of RAM recommended for future proof from Mark. Yes, I think so. So I bought the very first M1 Mac, and to be honest, I didn't even think I wanted to own a Mac. And I bought it more as like a test, so I didn't want to spend much more money. So $6.99 was actually $10.99 for me here in Australia. So the next step up was going to be $12.99, no, $13.99 in fact, to get the one with more RAM. So I went with the base level. Now the 8 GB is ridiculously good. Not going to lie to you, it's not the old. If you've got your mind set in the old PC days, the Intel chip with the separate RAM with the separate graphics, it's hard to do. But you've almost got to get yourself out of that mindset, because I spent the first sort of month after the announcement going, but it's only got 8 gig of RAM, but it's got integrated everything. This can't possibly be it. It is it. If your mind's caught on the old Intel days where you had the Intel chipset with the built-in graphics and then you needed 16 gig or 32 gig of RAM to actually make it usable, not the case. As you can see, I stream, I do multicast streaming here. I use all of the graphics and all of the music apps that I want to on my Mac M1, the absolute base model, and it crushes. So I think that's pretty cool. Yes. All right, let's continue on here. So the iPad Pro. If you are more the iPad fan, guess what? Again, burying the lead here. The iPad Pro has got the M1 chip. And shout out to my buddy Patrick, who over at the GarageBand Guide. I've linked to his video about these updates as well down below, because you want to check out his video. He's got the three reasons you'd want to consider the iPad Pro. And I forget exactly what he said, but it's probably going to be the same things that I say, which is you've got the Thunderbolt connection for the USB-C. So the older version, let's come in here and learn more and view the specs, shall we? Because I like the tech specs. I like to cut to the chase and check out the details here. So here's the specs. You've got your capacity all the way up to 2 terabytes on both the 11-inch and the 12.9-inch. Now, is that overkill for a music producer? Yes. I currently have the 512 gigabyte 2020 model of the 11-inch iPad Pro, and I still haven't filled half of it. So plenty of storage space, but 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte is pretty cool. And the thing that's cool that comes along with that, if we come down a little bit here, is the memory. Now, Apple don't usually talk about RAM or the amount of memory that's in their machines, especially their iPads and iPhones, but check this out. They do here, because the 128, 256, and 512 gig models have 8 gigabytes of RAM. The 1 and 2 terabytes have 16 gigabytes of RAM. That's ridiculous on a tablet. So what they've done is they've just grabbed the M1 chip straight out of the Mac Mini and out of the MacBook Air and out of the iMac, and they've thrown it into an iPad. Now, this did result in the new iPads being slightly thicker and slightly heavier, something that we'll talk about in a minute, because if you're thinking about the 12.9-inch, yeah, I'd heard about this, but Patrick clued me into an article that basically confirms it. Yeah, you're going to be needing to buy a new Magic Keyboard if you have the Magic Keyboard and the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. So that's a bit of a pain in the butt. There is a new cameras on there. I don't know who's caring that much about the cameras on the iPad Pro. If you do, though, great, and more power to you. So you can check out the cameras and all the video recording and all the other things there. But that's the main things. The M1 chip, the level of storage, and then the RAM. Now, I mentioned very briefly there that we do indeed have the does it say here? Can't actually find it, but we do have the USB-C is now Thunderbolt, which means that you can connect up to a whole range of high-speed Thunderbolt drives, which is going to be great for video editing. Things like LumaFusion have already said that they're going to allow for the use of external storage when you're editing your videos. So that's very cool. You've got a whole bunch of 4K footage, and you've only got, say, a 256 or 512 gig internal storage. We can grab yourself like a 2 terabyte Thunderbolt drive, plug that sucker in, and do all your editing right there on the drive. It's going to be fast enough to do your editing. The old drives, especially spinning drives, no way. You can't edit 4K video on an external drive, even over USB-C. It gets too clunky. Thunderbolt is going to be the go. The other thing is, of course, the Liquid Retina display on the 11-inch, but the Liquid Retina XDR display, which is Apple's fancy term for their mini LED. So you're going to get that on the 12.9-inch only, not the 11-inch. So you might be thinking now, Pete, that's all fine and all dandy. You've been talking for nearly 15 minutes about this, and you talked to us about it last week too. What are you going to do? Well, I'm in a bit of a quandary here because I have an 11-inch iPad Pro 2020 that I love, the 512 gigabyte model. I kind of want a bigger display, and the fact that there's now a difference, not just size, but in the actual screen quality of the 12.9-inch, kind of says to me that I should actually check it out. The other thing is that I would need to get another new Magic Keyboard. And here's the thing: here in Australia, like we're here in the nice US pricing here, where everything looks nice and neat and tidy. It gets a little bit messy when you go to Australia. Let me show you this. So if I'm speccing this out for myself and I want to update my iPad Pro, we'll go to apple.com.au and take a look here. It's going to be pretty expensive. I haven't actually done this yet, so has that actually gone there? There we go. So if I go to the iPad here, there it is, and we go to the view pricing here for Australia, it starts at $11.99 as opposed to $8.99. So this is the difference: $11.99 versus $16.49. There is a big gap between the 11 and the 12.9. So if I wanted to go the 12.9, I'd want to get the 1 terabyte version, Wi-Fi. Yeah, I'm setting myself back $2,699. And then I have to add a Magic Keyboard, which is going to be, for me here in Australia, is going to be $649 for the 12.9 inch. So I'm spending $3,200? I don't think so. The other option I have, if I just want to get into the M1 world, is that I keep my Magic Keyboard, because the good news is the 11-inch Magic Keyboard works fine with the new iPads. Go figure, it's just the 12.9s. So I'd only be spending $2,249 if I wanted to upgrade. Is this something I'm going to do? Eventually, probably. Straight away, probably not. I don't see myself jumping on this bandwagon straight away. I'm going to, this time around, most likely let others test it out, because here's the thing: we still haven't seen any reviews of these M1 iPads. Apple look like they've given the AirTags to every man and his dog, because Renee Ritchie's using them, iJustine's using them. The iMacs and the iPads, we will see reviews a second that they are available, because there would be people sitting with them probably right now under embargo, just waiting to be able to release their reviews. So there's people out there using them for sure, but Apple are being very careful, making sure none of that leaks out yet. We will see what happens there. Tom's saying it will be nice in a few years when the M-line chips become standard on iPads, as well as 16 gigabytes of RAM. Pro models will likely have a bit more. Yeah, that's the interesting thing. Are you going to get more than 16 gigabytes in an iPad in the future? I mean, you are, but in the near future, because we've jumped pretty fast. We've gone from 4 and 6 gigabytes straight up to 8 and 16. And if you look at the progression over time, like if you go to my iPad guide, which still needs to be updated, I know, I'm going to get there. It still needs to be updated with the new ones. But I have an iPad guide where I have a chart here with all of the different iPads. And here you go. This is my studiolivetoday.com/iPad. This is where you can jump in. And I haven't updated it since September 2020 because we hadn't had new iPads. Now we do have them. So if we come in here and we search through this comparison chart, what we can see is not much because it's zoomed way out. If we zoom in, look at this. At the start, the first iPad had 256 megabytes of RAM on the A4 1 gigahertz chip. So, and this is where Apple are a bit crazy, because they had a slide in their presentation that said the new iPad Pro is 750 times more powerful than the first iPad. Like, no shizzle, Sherlock, because it was from 12 years ago and it had an A4 chip with 256 megabytes of RAM. It's got like 64 times less RAM to start with. I mean, that's gonna hamstring you, right? So then we went through 1 gig, 2 gig, 3 gig, 4 gig, right up to 6 gigabytes, which was only last year. And then we've taken a massive quantum leap up to these M1 chips with 8 or 16. So even the 8 gigabyte models, don't think that you have to go the 1 terabyte just to get the 16 gigabyte. The 8 gigabyte iPad with 512 gig of storage is going to destroy. It's going to be a fantastic machine. So there you go. There you go. I'm sticking with my first gen iPad Pro 128 gig as long as I can from John. And here's the thing. I'll jump over to this now, because actually, hold that thought, because I'm going to talk about that in my rant, which is coming up soon. But before that, what is next here? So as Mark alluded to before, and others have said this, I know Patrick said this in his review, we've got WWDC just around the corner. That's in June. That's in like 6 weeks' time. So my view, and the view of a lot of other people that are smarter than me and more connected than me, is that we're going to start seeing more from Apple in terms of the chip, because we've got all the gear now, right? So here's my view. Here's what Apple are thinking. They're like, let's do this announcement, get all this gear out, the consumer level gear. We get it into people's hands in May. It's not a coincidence that this is going to be available to order at the end of April, and they're going to ship it all out in May. They're going to get the M1 in as many people's hands in May, so that when they in June announce the big software side and the development side announcement that's coming, then a bunch of people have got M1s. M1 Max from last year, M1 iMacs from this year, M1 iPads. So all of your creators are going to be sitting there on the edge of their seats wondering what Apple are going to do next. And what Apple are going to do next is some sort of integration. Now, I've got no idea what this is going to mean or how it's going to work because I don't want to spend the energy thinking about it too much. But it will be some sort of integration. They're not doing all this alignment with the M1 chip and having everyone on the same platform so that they can keep things completely separate. Now, I've speculated that instead of having iPhone's different. Instead of having iPad OS and Mac OS, they're just going to go to Apple OS. It's just all going to be the same because Mac OS in Big Sur is more like iOS than it's ever been before, and iOS is starting to integrate more desktop features like mouse and keyboard support and full desktop browsing than it's ever had before. So your Mac is more like an iPad than it's ever been, and your iPad is more like a Mac than it's ever been. We are going to get to the point where the two shall combine, and by the power of Grayskull, we shall have only one. There shall be only one. There you go. You can clip this, and then when I'm completely wrong and they go an entirely different direction in 2 months' time, you can say, Pete, you were wrong. And that's totally cool because I'm more than happy to be wrong. I, in fact, love it because the more mistakes you make, it means you're out there trying things, yeah? The more mistakes you make, the better. So that's my view. But tell me what you think. If you're here live, you can leave a comment. If you're here on the replay, you can also leave a comment. Don't worry. I will be back into the comments answering anything that you may have. Michael Purcell says the iPad Pro upgrade's still not worth it until Logic Pro is available. And yeah, that will be interesting to see how that implementation is done. For the longest time, we've said Logic Pro could just come to iPad OS. I don't think it's going to work like that. I don't think it's just going to be that they're going to release those. When they become universal apps, they're going to work. But will they work on anything but the M1? I doubt it. I know that's sad for people like me that spent $2,000 just last year on a brand new iPad Pro 2020 to think that in 2021 there may be Logic Pro available as a universal app and I can't use it just because I got an old A13 processor in my iPad. That's pretty sad. A12, in fact. A12, yeah. Anyway, there we go. Facebook's got all sorts of issues at the moment, by the way. It keeps telling me that I've lost connection to Studio Live today, to my Facebook. So if you're watching on Facebook, apologies, jump over to Twitch or to YouTube. I may just have to disable Facebook. It's giving me more problems than it's actually giving me value. So I'll start putting the links to YouTube over on Facebook instead. All right, rant of the week. Now that we've talked about all the shininess and all the goodness, what I wanted to rant about right here, right now, is something that I rant about an awful lot, and that is use the gear you have right now to start creating. People have been in the chat here saying, I'm currently using, here you go, Nate Dixon, I'm currently using an iPad Air 2. Awesome. Until a year ago, I was using an iPad Air 2, and it works great. It runs the latest iPad OS 14. It runs GarageBand beautifully. As long as you're not loading it up with thousands of plugins, you're going to be absolutely fine. So use what you have right now. It's very tempting to look at all this shininess and start feeling bad because you can't afford to have the latest and greatest. Guess what? I can't afford to have the latest and greatest. I'm going to be using this entry-level Mac Mini until I can't anymore. Like it's until I don't need it, until I need something more. But I haven't found I haven't found any sort of like not bootleg. What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, that thing where you come into a pipeline, and it's not good enough. Anyway, it hasn't failed me yet. I can't think of that word, pipeline. You know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, where things come together. But I haven't found an issue that I haven't been able to work through where it's been a performance-based thing. And because the new M1 chip is so darn cool, and because it does manage everything for you, you just don't have to think about it. And I know, getting back to it, people don't like the whole appliance-based computing idea. Some folks want more control. They want to be able to upgrade their graphics card. They want to be able to add more memory. I get it. I was there. I was right there with you a year ago. I'm not now because I just want the convenience of plugging it in, it working, and me getting on with what I want to do. I don't have the time or the energy to do the tweaking anymore. I just want to do the creating. So I say all that to say, whatever you have, if you're rocking an iPhone 6S like I was a year ago, if you're rocking the iPad Air 2, if you're using an Android phone from 2003, I don't care. It has the ability to record digital audio. Record digital audio. Start creating. There is a way you're going to be able to start creating. I started on the iPad 4, which was the old 30-pin connector. It had GarageBand 2.1 on it, and I just taught myself and started learning GarageBand and was making good music. I could still be doing that right now if I wanted to. I like a little bit of the newness, and because of what I do for a job now, I do need to keep up a little bit. But please, Don't jump in there and say, oh, I need to buy all the things. Use what you have to create. But start creating right now, because you don't have to sit back waiting for something new. That's not going to be the difference. Guess what? There's going to be plenty of people that rush out and buy iPhone 12 Pros and rush out and buy new iMacs and new iPad Pros that are still not writing good songs. Why? Because they're not sitting down and writing enough music. They're not creating, recording, and releasing. They're not getting their stuff out there and getting the feedback and getting the input to make their music better. They're just creating, or they're just fiddling around. They're just having a fiddle. They're tooling about. They're flapping. They're pissy-pantsing about, instead of actually going, hey, I just need to learn how to create music and then create music and then rinse and repeat, and I'm going to get better. There you go. That is my rant of the day. Is that gas is avoidable. Not all gas. Not gas after a nice Mexican meal, but gas in terms of this is very avoidable, because just use what you got. And that's the thing, comparison. We're in a world of comparison where everyone's looking left and right and up and down. The only time you should be looking left and right and up and down to other people is to make sure other people have enough and that other people are creating, not to see what these people that you're aspiring to be are doing and then feeling bad because you don't have the gear or the experience or the talent to be them. Guess what? Very few of us do. But you're not going to be the best Warren Hewitt or Rick Beato, but you are going to be the best you. And that's the way I look at it. No one can be Pete Johns like me. Yeah. Let's get into the actual GarageBand show. We've been ranting and fluffing about for 26 minutes now, so we need to get into some actual content. And we're going to come over here. We don't want that one. We want to get this going on. Now, in one of my previous demos, I found this song, and it made me laugh, which is why I used it for the intro today, because it's called Funk My Brass. And I thought that was pretty fun. So just use this to test to make sure that our levels are right, and we can use some GarageBand. Sounds good, looking good, feeling good. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so in this week, our tip of the week, we are going to look at how to combine, hang on, I've got to get in here. Let's take a look at how to combine loops and keyboard instruments in GarageBand, because it can be a bit tricky, and I'm going to show you what I mean. Let's jump in here and start loading up some loops. So we've come into GarageBand, we're going to create a new track here, and we're right here in our regular audio recorder. We're just going to go to our track view mode here, and then we're going to go to Apple Loops. We're going to bring in an Apple loop. Now, my favorite Apple loop, I've loved it ever since it was released, is actually a MIDI loop. It's this one here. It's this Latin rock piano, because it sounds like this. And I've always wanted to use this in something. So I'm going to use it in this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap and drag this. Now, because it's a MIDI loop, it's not going to go in our first folder. It's going to go in our second one. Although it can actually. It can go there. Did you know that? You can drag a MIDI loop onto an audio track, and it's going to create an audio file. Pretty cool. All right, we'll undo that because we don't want that here. But yeah, I thought, in case you didn't know that, there you go. There's a twofer, an extra tip. But we'll grab the Latin rock 70s piano and we'll bring it into here. And now it's a MIDI loop. And the reason we want to keep it a MIDI loop is it means that we can actually come in here and edit it. We can change the instrument, we can change all of the settings here, and we can even change the notes here. We can transpose it, we can tweak it, we can change it, we can do whatever we want. So we've got our Latin rock piano here. Now, what I'll do, let's just layer up another couple of loops here, and then I'll show you how we can actually utilize these with our keyboard instruments. Because people ask me questions like, Pete, how do I adjust tempos? What about the key signature? How does this all work together? I'm going to show you all that here. So we'll go to our Apple loops, and let's grab another one. This time we want something that's an actual. There was a cool saxophone that I was playing around with the other day, but what was it called? I thought it was called the back to something. Is it up here? Back to school. Let's try this back to school sax. So this is from the Vision and Verse kit. So if we tap on this one, that's a bit weird. What about this number one? That's a bit nuts. We'll bring it in anyway. Let's just see if it does anything. So we'll bring this in here. No, that's really not going to work. Was it the other one that I was liking and that I was playing with? The back to school number 2 sax? Let's bring this one in here. No, that was not it either. Oh, I was playing before, and I found something that worked well, and it's clearly not one of these. All right, we're going to have to get a little bit more experimental here. We'll go back to school, back to the jams. What about the piano? That might work a bit better. All right, let's bring in this piano. Now, this one is just a regular loop. So you can see here, this is a MIDI loop, this is an audio loop. And if we play these together, now, GarageBand does something to help you out here. Almost all of the loops that you have here are actually in the key of C minor. So if you want to work out that, what we can do is we can come in here to a piano. Let's just add a regular piano. So we'll go to our more sounds here. We'll add in our classical grand, and there's our C minor chord, yeah? Or even easier, if we come into our chords mode, we can actually edit our chords. So we'll come here, we'll edit chords. And in fact, you know what? Before we edit our chords, let's put our whole key, because this can make things easier for us. We'll put our whole key into C minor, because this will auto-adjust all of these. So if you're using loops, that's the first tip. Put your key into C minor if you're using them on the default key. Because now, if I just play along with this sound that we've got in here, let's hit play. Sorry, it's sounding a bit too frenetic. I'm gonna get rid of this other piano. It's just confusing me because it's nice, but it's not the right sort of thing. So if we go back to our piano, you can hear there that I got the key wrong, but it was actually the C minor, and then it went to the F minor, G minor. Except it was more like a G7 at the end there, but it's based around a C, F, G, a standard 1-4-5 that you've got there. So if we come back over to here, we can actually use some of this. In fact, we could add some autoplay, but what I'll do first is I'll change this instrument because we don't want two pianos. We've already got the Latin piano there. We're going to change this instrument to maybe our electric piano. Why don't we go with that? Here it is, our electric piano, a bit of a Rhodes sound here. That's going to work well, yeah? So because we're in that key of C minor, and we know it goes 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5, we can actually bring this in here. So let's now hit record, and what we're going to do is layer over the top of our loop. We're going to layer an actual instrument we're going to play in here, manually, here in GarageBand. We'll hit record, and we'll go for it. There we go. So I did it better the second time. So let's split that out the middle here. So I didn't like the first version we did there. So we're just going to grab this, split it. We're going to delete this first version. Then all we need to do is grab this one, tap it, loop it, and there you go. So now we've got ourselves, we're starting to build up a track here, yeah? Now, you might be saying, well, that's very limiting. If everything is in C minor, how bloody boring does that get? Well, it does get a bit boring, so guess what? We can change it. And I recommend you change it. If you're worried about using your loops and you're worried about copyright and you're worried about content matches, what you want to do is actually change things up a little bit. So the first thing you can do is change the key. And we can do that easily. We tap here on our little item, our little settings item, and we go to key signature. Now, because we've set it to C minor, which we know is the key of our loops, we can actually change this to whatever we want. Now, we can't change it to major, because it's not going to change the notes like that. But let's say we want to bring it to one of my favorite keys, E minor. We can do that. We tap E minor, and now take a listen. Right? So it's in the E minor key now. And that's going to mean that if someone else has a song, so Mark Woodyatt here is saying that he's used that. He's used this loop, and a lot of other people have too. So you want to make it your own, yeah? You want to make sure you're not using the same stuff as everyone else for copyright reasons and just for creativity. So we've got that changed now. But now I'm thinking this E piano needs to come down an octave. So that's easy. Because this is all MIDI, we can actually come in here to our settings, and we can take this down a whole octave by just tapping this one here. So we've transposed it down an octave, and now we get this sound. There you go. So we'll just bring this down. Now we know that we're in E minor. what's cool is that let's add some more instruments. Let's add an over-the-top like kind of sound. In fact, we'll go into our more sounds here because you might not know, but in the other here, we've got some very cool like flutes and oboes and clarinets and French horns. I'm thinking a flute might work on top of this one. Yeah, I'm thinking like some sort of flute sound like that. So we'll just scroll this up a bit and we'll get a nice trebly flute sound going on here. Like, I'll just have to bring my microphone in here. Something like that. So let's record this along with it. And remember, we're in E minor now. So we can play this in E minor. So hit the record button and try something. Now, I deliberately made a mistake there. Sure, let's go with that. So that we could fix it. Because again, because we're MIDI here, we can tap here, we can go edit. And where's our mistake? Let's listen. See if you can find it with me. Yeah, so we made the mistake on that note. So we just grab this and bring it back up. And now it's like it never happened. Cool. Now, it's not right on the beat, so what we do is we would quantize this sucker because, just to make it sound a little bit better, we'll come in here, we'll go to our track settings, we'll go to quantization. Now, it's a bit of a swing rhythm, so we'll probably give it like a 1/16 heavy swing and just see if this works with this track. Probably more a 1/8 swing. No, it's not. We'll go with 1/16 light. That'll probably be the best. So we're building this out here now. Now, of course, we could add in other loops here because, we tried this regular loop, but any of our regular sort of drum loops that we wanted to put in here, we can. So let's just find something random that might work in this as a drum loop. What about an African drum? African talking drum. We're going some real fusion here. So some real fusion of styles. Yep, and then we need some sort of drum kit in here as well. So let's just find a drum kit kind of sound. We'll come down. We'll use a drummer loop. You know what? Let's use maybe not Anders. Anders might be a bit nuts, but maybe Anton. Maybe Anton. We'll bring in the Anton first class. His electric drums that we bring in here. Let's see what this is going to do. So we've started to build out something pretty cool here, yeah? Now, you don't have to stop there. One final thing I wanted to show you is that you can even add in some auto-tune here. So let's go to another keyboard instrument that we know, auto-tune, some auto-play. Let's go to another keyboard instrument that we know has some auto-play here. So what about something like the French horn? This has got some auto-play, doesn't it? Or am I missing it? No, it doesn't. Yes, it does. French horn has some auto-play. So we know we're in E minor. We can just play the French horn the same way we did there by putting the chords in. We can play it directly in. We can play it directly in there. But if we're here in our chords mode, we can actually use autoplay. So let's find an autoplay that might work for this. So what about autoplay number 2? I kind of like that. So let's add this in by hitting the record button and using our autoplay. So we're just going to tap record, then we're going to tap on the E minor here. There you go. So we can then just loop this out here because we've got our first half of it. We bring it to there and we loop it. Boom. And then we grab this one and we loop it. So we've used a whole bunch of different types of loops in here. And the key is the key. So the key is the key. The key is to keep everything in the same key, right? To make sure that we know our key signature, that we know that we're matching up, and that when we select our loop, especially if you're using loops like these sort of loops that come in here, let's bring this nuts piano back in, shall we? If you're using especially Apple loops or these blue loops, that they're generally going to be in C minor. So do keep that in mind. And then, there you go. In the space of about 10 minutes, you've been able to pull together something that is customized, that's completely unique and completely you. And if you need a podcast intro or an intro to a video or your own personal music you're going to use behind your videos, this is a cool way to do it without a whole lot of effort. So let's see, without any mixing or without much going on, what's actually happened with this. Let's hit play. And to celebrate, we've lost the screen. But there you go. That is how we can utilize our Apple loops. So we've got loops in there. We've got our own instruments. You can use autoplay together. And again, the key is the key. And you can, of course, change tempo and do other cool things in there as well. So there's heaps more videos. If you go over to studiolivetoday.com/GarageBand, you're going to be able to find a whole bunch of other information about how to use GarageBand on your iPhone or iPad. Let us move on, shall we? I'm going to reconnect my iPad screen in the background here so that we can use it for our next section, because we're going to be diving into our plugin of the week, which is a cool one. And I actually did a complete video on this one yesterday. I've got the core audio isn't available. Have you ever seen that one? Yeah, core audio isn't available has popped up, but that's right. It's gone away. We'll plug back in. Hopefully we'll be able to revive things. Oh. We've got the live stream jitters here. So what do we do when we get this? Well, we close everything and we reopen and we start again. So I'm going to close out of that GarageBand project. It's saved it in. We're going to close all of my apps here on the iPad. Then we're going to reconnect via our Reflector 4. I'm using Reflector 4, which is pretty reliable. Sometimes it falls away like that. I still haven't worked out if it's Reflector, if it's iOS, if it's the Mac. I don't know. But it is working. So what we have now is, there it is. It's reflecting up on my screen. And now I should be able to plug in the audio, which is back into my audio interface. And it should work okay. See, it's gone away again. This could be a bit of fun. So while I reboot my iPad, which we're going to hold down on the buttons here, and we'll do a quick reboot. We'll have to change up the order here, but that's all right. We can be flexible here, because I wanted to talk about a couple of, we'll come back over here. Wanted to talk about a couple of resources here for your GarageBand needs. So I've got a couple of these linked down below. The first of which is a little bit self-serving. Okay, it's a lot self-serving. It is my GarageBand FAQ. So if you go, I'm trying to go there now myself. If you go to studiolivetoday.com, which we'll do here, studiolivetoday.com/GarageBand. I know it's a tricky one. Should be pretty easy to find. studiolivetoday.com/GarageBand. Let's hit the button and go over there now. This is my GarageBand iOS FAQ. So if you are ever stuck in GarageBand and you don't know where to turn, this is where I'd suggest you turn. So what we've got here is at the very top there, again, shameless plug for my GarageBand Beginner's Guide. So that's 5 hours of hand-picked videos and content for just $10. You can buy that, and then you can have an interactive course that you can use for all your GarageBanding needs. And then I've got my best links here. So if you're starting out with GarageBand, we've got what is GarageBand, how to start a song, how to set up, my Quick Jam series, and my Essentials video series there as well. And then I've got a link there to Patrick over at the GarageBand Guide. Because if you're on a Mac, I don't specialize in Mac. I recommend going and talking to Patrick and checking out the GarageBand Guide. But then what I've got is an alphabetized list of all of the things that you may want to learn. So you can come in here if you're looking for something. So you want to learn about compression, you come in here, you can jump over to some of the videos and get a quick description about compression. You want to learn about echo and delay, or EQ, or FX. There's a whole bunch of tips in here, and they all link to videos that can help you out. So the GarageBand FAQ at Studio Live Today is a handy dandy resource if you are new to GarageBand, or even if you're an experienced GarageBand user, you'll be able to utilize that. The other thing that I recommend is, as I alluded to there, jump on over here and check out the GarageBand Guide, or as some may call it, the GarageBand Guide, because you can go either way. So the GarageBand Guide with our friend Patrick over there is a great resource for all of your GarageBand Mac needs. As I mentioned earlier, he's got his Apple Did What? The 3 reasons to love the iPad Pro 2020. And this is a very cool one. If you're an iPad Mac user, or someone like me who's trying to get into iPad Mac, this is a really cool one. 5 GarageBand secrets. Let's, while we're still getting everything set up here, I didn't ask Patrick for permission, but I'm going to assume that he's okay with this. Let's just play, while I get my my screen done, let's just play a quick couple of seconds so that you can get a little taste of what to expect if you want to watch this video.
Come here. I'm going to tell you a secret. In fact, I'm going to share 5 secret GarageBand for Mac techniques that you've definitely never heard of before.
And there you go. Before I get a content match for Patrick for his cool theme music, we'll jump over away from there and we'll see if we've got this back. I'm going to jump here into GarageBand. But yeah, do go and check out Patrick at the GarageBand Guide. He's got all of the knowledges and all of the things you need to know. So here is our song. We're using AirPlay. I'm going to try one more time to plug in our audio interface to get our proper stereo audio. Otherwise, we're going to have to go with the AirPlay audio if this falls away again. But hopefully we get out this pop-up, which we did. So, by the way, extra bonus tip here, turn it off and on. Now, why is my mouse? My mouse isn't, there it is. Turn it off and on. If something is not working, the first thing you should always do is turn it off and on, because you will be absolutely flabbergasted how often that just works. It really does. It just works. You turn it off, you turn it back on, everything resets and refreshes, and you're good to go. So that's what we did here. All right. Our plugin of the week this week is the LRC5 EQ from Neon Silicon. There's a complete video review, which I've linked down below, but this will be a quick guide to getting started with it. So here is a track I prepared earlier. We've got a bunch of audio tracks here, and let's play around with this, shall we? So we've got an electric piano here. Let's solo this one and take a listen. It sounds like this. And it's a little bit low down. In fact, let's transpose this back up. So we'll go to our settings. We'll bring this back up to our higher sound. So we're getting... We'll turn off that horrific metronome that GarageBand wants us to have there. So how do we add LRC7? Go to the App Store, search LRC7, come in here to your plugins and EQ, hit the plugins and EQ button, hit edit, and tap the plus. Now, I recommend putting your EQ at the bottom here, just above the visual EQ, and we'll go to audio unit extensions. Now, if you're not familiar with LRC5, this was the original free EQ for iOS. It's a 5-band parametric EQ from Neon Silicon. It is great. It was my free app of the year, like the last 2 years running. But it's got a contender now. The free app of the year this year is going to be tough because it's probably going to be this one. I know there's other apps that will come and go, but LRC7 is a new version. It's a 7-band version of LRC5. Excuse me. So LRC7, we can tap on this one, and here is the goodness. Now this is something that's being looked at the moment. I've already chatted to the developer. This is an old error message, but it just means that if you're using a virtual instrument in GarageBand, the sample rates can give you a few little dramas here. So don't worry too much about that one. What we can do here though is we've got 7 different bands, and we can turn these on and use different types of filters. So the main types of filters we have here, if we tap and hold on this one, we can turn this one to say a high pass filter, and we can set that one there. There you go. We can actually bring in a high pass filter there. Now the cool thing is we can change our Q settings by spreading out here. So if you think, oh, why have we got that bump there? We can tap it. We can spread out our Q settings, and we can go all the way in and all the way back out again. So that's pretty darn cool. Oh, it's not quite doing what I want it to. There we go. It's a little hard to demonstrate over the top here, but if we bring that all the way down, there you go. So we can actually bring it down so that it's just that flattened out view like that. Or we can tap it and we can spread it out, and you get that nice bump there. You've also got a peak. So if we find a frequency we want to change, we tap and hold, we move it over to our peaking, and then we can set the filter there, and then we can move this up and down. Now, tip for young players, if you've got both of these orange, the orange ones are the ones that you're changing, and you can multi-select, and you can have more than one selected at a time. So if you're finding you're moving different things, just tap them again to tap them off, and then you can change it. So if we wanted to play this sound now. So if we find a frequency we really don't like, we can add this and we can just remove it. So we can bring it on down like this, and then we're not hearing as much of that frequency we don't want. Pretty darn cool. The other thing we can do is we've even got notch filtering in here. So we can tap that one, we can turn it into a notch. There you go. We can set the filter as a notch, and now we get this really finite control, yeah? So we can actually notch it down. And again, with our Q setting, we can tap it and spread our fingers. And look at this, we get this chasm of goodness. And this can be great for finding exactly the frequency that you want to affect. So if we play it again, if there's there's a really annoying frequency that's just standing out, you can just pull it on down, use your notch filter. Now, as you saw there's a whole bunch of other filters there. There's a whole bunch of other options you have in here. You've got a bunch of presets. So if we want to use something, I haven't tried many of these. What's the transistor radio? There you go. You can get that cool transistor radio effect where it cuts off a bunch of the low frequencies and the high frequency, and you get this real mid-rangey sound like this. Yeah? Pretty cool, huh? So yeah, you can play around with that. You can use this on each individual track. You can use it on your whole mix if you've got a WAV file that you bring in here. There you go. You've got all of those that you can play around with. It's very, very cool. And again, there's a heap more options. And in the full review video, you can check out exactly how to use it. But I'm pretty excited because LRC5, as I said, was my favorite plugin. And it's just the best EQ. Now, why would you use this instead of your Visual EQ? Well, Visual EQ only has 3 bands here, and they're very limited. You've literally got your high pass filter, you've got your low pass filter, or your sort of a shelf at the top here, and then you've got a single peak filter that you can put in the middle here. So it's not really going to give you the flexibility that you're going to get. And again, since it's free, you might as well download it. One final thing, don't get rid of LRC5. A lot of folks have said, oh cool, LRC7's the bomb, I don't need LRC5 anymore. You can use both. So that's a pretty cool use case. You can line up one filter and then put the next one on there as well. And secondly, if you've got any projects that are using LRC5 and you delete it, it's going to affect those. So when you reopen that project, it's going to say, oh, you're missing something here. You're missing LRC5. So don't delete it. Plus, it's tiny. I think it's like maybe a few megabytes. It's not a big plugin. You're not going to be saving yourself space. You might as well leave them both there. So there you go, LRC5. That was only a very quick little demonstration, but hopefully that helps you out. We are coming towards the end here. Now, I'm going to scroll back in here and see if there's any questions. So if you do have any questions, please, now is your time to answer them. We've got about 7 or 8 minutes before we finish up. Now, I do see here that Jade Star has said that she is unfortunately unwell and won't be doing her show today, so that'll be postponed. So if you were hanging out for How To App on iOS, which I know I was, then you're just maybe going to have to wait another day or two. Thank you to Jade and Tom. So Jade's thrown the link there. There you go. You can grab LRC7 and you can use it not only in GarageBand, but in Cubasis. You can use it in Audio Pro. You can use it in anything that uses AUV3. So you can't use it standalone because it really wouldn't make sense to use it standalone. Thank you to Tom, who's also one of our moderators here, who has put the link there to Patrick and the GarageBand Guide. And Sion, who's also one of our moderators, who says, I'm on the other side. I'm not as hyped as a lot of videos about the new iPad. And you know what? It is all hype. At this point, it's hype. We will wait and see. We'll wait and see if we actually, because people will start using it. And what will it do? I think the thing that's going to disappoint people with the new one, let's just come over here. The thing that's going to disappoint the people with the new iPad is that the iPad Pro 2020, the current one, crushes everything. I've never, apart from today, where apparently it just won't reflect properly, but a reboot fixed that, it just crushes everything. So there's not really anything that you can use all the power of the M1 yet. So I think this is going to be the precursor. People will jump on it, they'll try it out, they'll say it's good, but there's nothing that's really going to put it to the test yet. But the yet is the part of it. Hello to Fernanda, who says, I have an iPad, but it's not getting any update anymore. There's nothing I can do to have the new content, or is it? So, yeah, if you have an older iPad, so any iPad earlier than the iPad Air 2 that's running iOS 12 or earlier, then no, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get the new version of GarageBand. You're going to be stuck on GarageBand 2.3.7 from memory, because that's the last version that supported iOS 12. iOS 13 and 14, that's where we got 2.3.8, 9, and now 10. So if you are using an older piece of kit, unfortunately, you won't be able to use the new GarageBand or the new sound packs and the new features that came in GarageBand. It's unfortunate, but I mean, the iPad Air 2 is, 7, 8 years old now, so it is pretty decent backwards compatibility. I know for all the criticism that folks give Apple sometimes for making you buy new stuff all the time, there is different stuff. Sion says, tip, use the Visual EQ to see the frequencies and LRC to manually sculpt it. Yeah, that's something I wanted to mention. And I hope Rob doesn't mind me saying this, but I have actually chatted to Rob and said, you know what, the one thing that people say that would make LRC7 complete is to have a visualization. I'm kind of on the camp that I don't like a visualization when I'm doing things like this. Like let's grab one of these. Let's grab these French horn this time, and we'll play this. It sounds like this, like this. If we go to our visual EQ and we turn this on, you might be aware that we have this analyzer, so we can actually visualize it. And that will show us all of the different frequencies. So what Sion's saying is what you can do is use that, but then also grab LRC7. So if you want to visually identify some frequencies that you may not want, then you can do that. You can come in here, you can play this, and let's just say that, say you really didn't want this low down bit going on here. Well, you could roll it off there, or you could identify and you could say that this stuff down here at between 100 and 200 hertz is, say, interfering with my bass. It's not, but let's just say it is. And then you could come in here to LRC7, and you could come in here and you could add a filter. In fact, you could make it even easier. You could just come in here and you could do the cut lows and highs, and then you could just bring this one and say, right, everything below like 200 hertz, we're going to roll off like that, and then get you get like a thinner sound because you're not getting that bass sound, and then come back here to your visualizer and say, yay, look, I've removed all those pesky frequencies down below. But here's the thing. Mix with your ears, not your eyes, when at all possible. So the challenge, the problem you have with if you use the analyzer too much, you're going to start looking for things to change, not listening for things to change. Now, it can work sometimes with some types of music and with some things, or say you've got a real sort of harsh S sound or some popping Ps and you can identify them. You can't find them by sweeping. You can't find them by doing this and sweeping your range, but you can find them by putting your analyzer on and seeing them. Cool, use it. But I've seen too many people come in here, they're like, oh, I don't know what to EQ. Wait a minute, I'll look. It's actually the wrong verb to use. It shouldn't be to look, it should be to hear. So if you're using your eyes too much and using your ears too little, then that can be a challenge. Really good tip though. Not saying that Sion's not right here. It is. If you need to find it, if you need to have an analyzer, use these two in conjunction. And you can, of course, have them both on at the same time. You can use multiple. Make sure you do have them at the very bottom of your plug-in chain though. Generally speaking, you want to have your EQ at the end as opposed to up here at the start. So I'd put it just above your visual EQ there. There you go. That's an additional tip. Nice one. Thank you, Sion, for the additional tip. Thank you, Sentinent1. Just bought an iPad and started using GB. Your videos have been extremely helpful. No, thank you. The more people using iOS and using GarageBand, the better, because it is just a completely great way. It's removed all those barriers to entry for me. Mark's saying use ear every time. Yeah, ears beat eyes. They do. And sometimes you've literally got to close your eyes when you're mixing and listen, because too often we're looking at stuff. We're looking at what's coming in. We're looking at what's happening on our meters. Close your eyes and listen. And it's kind of why I like GarageBand, because it doesn't have a lot of metering. People have said, oh, there's no LUFS metering, there's no this metering, there's no that metering. I actually kind of like the fact that GarageBand has semi-limited metering. Tom says using Logic on the M1 really shows its power. No matter what you do, the CPU never goes above 25% usage. Yeah, exactly. Like my Mac Mini, I've tried to push it hard. I don't think I've ever heard the fan come on. Like it's the efficiency in that chip is just ridiculous. Totally cool. And Night Train, our buddy Al, says I use LRC7 today. It's great. It sure is. Yeah, it rocks. So LRC7 for the win. Maybe I need to do my own set of custom LRC7 EQ presets. Although that would go against everything I say about EQ, which is that you should customize it to whatever you want. Like, you shouldn't ever just go, oh, how did they EQ that vocal? I'll just EQ my vocal the exact same way. Kind of doesn't work that way. So what have we got coming up? Well, guess what? We've got another show. So when the show is over, the show isn't over. I'm just going to try and find it here in a move I should have done earlier. I'm going to look it up here. But you can join me. I'm going to go and have a couple of hours off, and then you can join me again 2 hours from now in this one here, the Creator Town Hall. So I'm going to like my own video. That's the sort of guy I am. But I'll copy it here. I'll throw it here into the chat. So if you're watching this one live and you want to join me for another 2 hours of content, creator-related content, what we do in that one is we have a chat. We talk about some hidden gems. We talk about the topics of the week. Yeah, we'll probably chat a bit more about the Apple stuff, but we'll also talk about other songwriting and creating-related things. So if you want to end your week right, then join me again. We'll have a chat. It's a nice casual atmosphere. We'll sit back. I'll have the coffee. You can bring whatever you like, and we'll have a chat. So we can be interactive, answering your questions, and talking about all things creator related. It's not just GarageBand, that's everything. That is going to do it for this one. I do thank you. And as we say at the end of every show, I thank you, and I want you to make sure you're looking after yourself. First and foremost, self-care, super important. Make sure that you're looking after your mental, your physical, your emotional health, and then look after other people. So once you're happy and healthy and fit, then you can actually devote yourself to helping others. And then, of course, because we're all creators, you want to keep creating. Thanks everyone for being here. If you got some fun times here today, feel free to hit like, share it with other GarageBand content creators, and I'll see you on the next one. 2 hours time. Catch you then.